Yes, welcome everybody to Cannabis News with Joe Klare for July 19th, 2018. Presented, of course, by the Marijuana Times. Check us out at marijuanatimes.org. Click the video tab on marijuanatimes.org to check out this show. There's also a bunch of great articles, our social media, and more. marijuanatimes.org. Check us out on there. Coming up today, talking about a few stories. One is a story I wrote about a recent op-ed in the New England Journal of Medicine, kind of dry, kind of bland, kind of boring. We won't spend a whole lot of time on that story that was written by me because there's much more interesting things going on. We have an interesting story out of, and a rather humorous story, out of a small town in Wyoming. And then we have Oklahoma. All kinds of crazy shenanigans going on in Oklahoma. We'll talk about all of that coming up. But first, of course, Cannabis News is brought to you by Natureside. Nature-side.com. Check out their organic, all-natural pesticides. If you are in a state where cannabis cultivation is legal, you want to be regulatory compliant, you want to grow safe and poison-free, don't use harmful chemicals on your grow. Make sure you use Natureside. Nature-side.com. Side is spelled C-I-D-E, a proud sponsor of Cannabis News. Thank you to Natureside. This first story, as I said, from marijuanatimes.org by yours truly. Marijuana Law Reform and the New England Journal of Medicine. Basically, there's an article I did about a recent op-ed in the New England Journal of Medicine, and I tied it into what I usually talk about, one of the main themes I talk about on this show and in my writing, which is the normalization and the mainstreaming of cannabis. The op-ed itself is very, dry, straightforward, not a lot of rhetorical flourishes, not a lot of, it's like a term paper. It's like a dry term paper. But the point is the fact that we're talking about cannabis and they're writing op-eds about it in the New England Journal of Medicine. 10 years ago, this was still a fringe issue. The approval ratings for marijuana legalization were in the 30s somewhere. People like myself who talked about cannabis activism and cannabis law reform and the future of it, and what it would take. We were still talking in terms of in our lifetimes if this would happen. Fast forward 10 years, we're talking about it. It's being legalized everywhere. The federal, the discussion on the federal level is advancing, and there's an op-ed in the New England Journal of Medicine, one of the most prestigious, if not the most prestigious, medical journal in the world. You can check out the link to my story in the description of this video, and of course I link to the op-ed in New England Journal of Medicine. A little bit. Give you a little taste of what the op-ed was like. The style was written in. The present state of conflicting laws seems unstable and suboptimal for rational drug control. That's right. If you can fit the word suboptimal into a paragraph, well, you are blazing a trail, as they say. Federal regulation that accommodates and reinforces state medical marijuana regulatory regimes will result in a safer, more reliable, more accessible supply of marijuana products. Congress, because it answers to the people and represents the states, appears the most likely branch to move on marijuana policy. It could even be encouraged to act by Canada's recent legalization of recreational marijuana. You get the drift. So anyway, go check out that story. As I said, we got to get to more important, more interesting stories. Maybe not more important, but certainly more interesting. This first story is out of Powell, Wyoming. PowellTribune.com. Marijuana found in city planters. If you live in a town, especially smaller towns, a lot of cities on the corners, they'll build little planters and plant flowers, and they'll have people come by, either city workers or whatever, to tend to the flowers. A little sprucing up, if you will, a little beautification of the streets of these small towns. Well, City of Powell workers recently discovered a different kind of weed sprouting up in a couple city planters, marijuana plants. Powell Police Chief Roy Eckert suspects someone slipped marijuana seeds into the city planters some time ago. Well, yeah, I would guess, 2 or 3 months ago, whatever, or at least, several weeks ago at some point. Amid the other plants and flowers growing in the pots, city workers unknowingly watered and cared for the cannabis plants for a period of weeks before discovering a couple on the afternoon of June 29th. They recognized it once everything started to leaf out, according to Police Chief Eckert. City Parks and Recreation Superintendent Del Barton. There's a Parks and Rec episode. Weed in the city planters. Superintendent Dale Barton said the plants were difficult for seasonal workers to distinguish at first. To be honest with you, and to be fair, without having a marijuana field testing kit, I can't tell the difference between hemp and marijuana, he said with a chuckle. But it sure looked like marijuana to me. Barnes workers pulled the plants and took them to police. A couple days later, another plant was found, bringing the total of 3 plants in different pots. Of course, there was some good-natured ribbing of city workers because of these discoveries. I guess somebody over PD was joking, Barton said, with the gals, telling them, we could arrest you for possession. The gals said, we just pulled them out of the pot. We weren't going to do anything with them. Oh, those gals. Don't get a good joke. We're joking with the gals. You can tell it's a small town in North Carolina. Imagine if somebody in New York or LA called a woman a gal. We were just chuckling with the gals. How dare you? How dare you? The gals. So anyway, that's what's going on in Wyoming. Now, to the main story. The wheels have come off. The train is off the rails in Oklahoma. 2 stories came across the wires today. We'll start with the first one. This is the one I originally was going to talk about, so let's talk about it. Anyway, Oklahoma Health Department officials sent threats to herself and blamed it on angry pot smokers. Yes, you read that right. This is from rawstory.com with the original reporting from Tulsa World. Julie Etzel, who was a lead attorney for the Department of Health, says she was getting threats, but when the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation got involved, it was discovered the threats were sent by the attorney herself. Julie Etzel has submitted her resignation and has been taken into custody for false reporting. I'm so sorry, quote unquote. Etzel said to Interim Health Commissioner Tom Bates in an email. According to court records, Etzel used a fake email on Pronto Mail, an encrypted service, at 2 a.m. on July 8th. This after her phone showed searches for whether Pronto Mail logged IP addresses and payment information. Her phone then showed access to the Pronto Mail account, Mary Jame at prontomail.com. So she's up on July 8th at 2 in the morning and decides, for reasons we'll get into in a second, that she's going to sign up for Pronto Mail, which I've never heard of. She goes and finds an encrypted mail service, sends herself a message, a threatening message that says, quote, we will stop you and your greed any way it takes to end your evil and protect what is ours. We will watch you. Again, not exactly Hemingway. People didn't go to writing school or anything along those lines. I could have written amazing emails. She should have contacted me. It would have been fantastic. She then sent threatening emails to herself about the implementation of the marijuana law. A half hour later, Ezra reportedly sent the text message F word. Text me when you are up. I just got a pretty threatening email about medical marijuana. The report did not say to whom the text was sent. She deleted her search history after accessing Pronto Mail, and once again after sending herself another threatening email and another text message to the same person reporting she had received another one. The new email said, we will expose your corruption and evil. We would hate to hurt a pretty lady. You will hear us. We are just beginning. Again, not great writing, and she couldn't avoid calling herself a pretty lady in the email she sent to herself. So later that day, another email appeared from the Pronto Mail account with her address and description of her cars, as well as a message saying, you appear distinguished in glasses. Wear them for the camera. She's getting creepy with herself after calling herself a pretty lady. Of course, there was her attorney told Tulsa World via email, these charges do not reflect who she is as a person, nor do they reflect the type of advocate she has been for the people of the state of Oklahoma. These allegations will be answered, and additional relevant information will be provided by us at the appropriate time. So I'm thinking to myself, as I'm reading this story, I'm thinking to myself, what possible reasons? They're going to come out soon, apparently, according to this attorney. What possible reasons would this woman have to send these messages? The only thing I could come up with in the few hours since I read this story, and I put a lot of thought into it because I'm going to talk about it on this show, I said to myself, what reason would she have? The only thing I could come up with is that she has something against the medical marijuana program. She's trying to paint medical marijuana users and advocates in a bad light. That's what I was going to go with. That's the theory I was going to go with at this point in the show. So about an hour before the show starts, of course, I'm following the cannabis news as I always do all day long, every day, 7 days a week. And another story comes across the wires. Tom Angel tweeted out, and much people picked it up. It's from nondoc.com. Let's bring the graphic up here. Pushing marijuana rule. Board of Pharmacy Director offered attorney a job. And guess who the attorney was? Yes. Julie Ezel, our favorite Oklahoma Department of Health attorney, again from nondoc.com. The same weekend, Julie Ezel told colleagues she had received threatening emails about medical marijuana rules. The former Oklahoma State Department of Health General Counsel was offered a job by Oklahoma State Board of Pharmacy Director Chelsea Church that included the, quote, guarantee of a pay raise if, quote, you get me a pharmacist in the dispensary, which of course ended up being one of the rules, besides no smokable marijuana, that was passed by the Oklahoma Board of Health. Church discussed the job with Ezel late Saturday, July 7th. So the email that we just talked about was sent early morning, July 8th. So this is what preceded the email. Ezel prepared the OSDH's final draft of rules released for the next day. The conversation was documented in a series of text messages obtained by NonDoc. Ezel declined to comment about the text exchange, but said the conversation was accurate and that the screenshots were from her phone. Using both her state and private cell phones, Church repeatedly begged Ezel to require the presence of a licensed pharmacist at medical marijuana dispensaries. Ezel's final draft of rules, released hours later, did not include the pharmacist's proposal, but the Board of Health amended the rules 2 days later to implement the mandate of having a pharmacist at every dispensary. At 10:45 a.m. on Sunday, Ezel told Church the rules were going out today, but that she had not done as the director had asked. Pharmacist has not been included for two reasons. I received a threatening email last night that has kept me tied up with law enforcement. Commissioner asked me to research pharmacist issue more and brief him on it. Please keep all of this confidential. So apparently the text messages from the previous story were sent to this Board of Pharmacy director woman, Chelsea Church. Ezel is facing felony charges for fabricating a series of email threats referenced in the quoted text above that she directed at herself, the story we just talked about. Ezel appears to have attempted to use threats as leverage during an interagency political fight about the medical marijuana rules. Ezel reportedly admitted her actions to the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation and resigned Friday. Meanwhile, Attorney General Mike Hunter has advised the Board of Health to amend its controversial rules, including the pharmacist requirement, which he says exceeded the entity's regulatory scope. So a lot of people had problems with that. They had problems with the no smokable marijuana, the ban that the Department of Health came out with. But the text exchanges between Ezel and Church have raised entirely separate legal questions concerning the formation of rules for Oklahoma's new medical marijuana program. Until now, I have been completely unaware of this information, and I will pursue the matter, Oklahoma County District Attorney David Prater told NonDoc on Thursday. So I don't know the point of this. It says, Ezel appears to have attempted to use the threats that she sent to herself as leverage during an interagency political fight about the medical marijuana rules. I'm not quite getting how that helped. I guess she was some kind of victim, so when she came up with, like, I want this rule, they would be like, yeah, you know what? You've been a victim of these evil potheads and their threatening emails, so we'll cave. I don't know. I'm sure there's so much more to come out about this story. And the messages, some of which are shown below, and all these stories are linked in the description of this video. Ezel and Church casually disparaged Assistant Attorney General John Settle, with Church saying, I'm going to call his effing A out, smiley face. Get it, Ezel replies. Maybe I will bail on OSDH and come work for you. Church replies, please, smiley face, after many exclamation points. Before texting from her state phone, you give me a pharmacist and dispensary and then come to our office. I guarantee I can do more than you have now. Smiley face. Minutes later, Church texted and introduced herself to Ezel from her personal cell phone. If this settles down, I would honestly love to talk to you about OSBP. Church says, we have a statutory authority for attorney, and I think you would be a great fit. You tell me what it would take for you to jump, and we need to talk. Ezel replies, noting that she is on her personal phone. Hi, Chelsea. I'm definitely wearing out at OSDH, and I'm not sure how much longer I will stay, and I do think I would love working for you. Fortunately for me, I am very well paid for what I do, and deservedly so in my mind. I may be priced out of your budget. I will text you on this number from now on. Church responds, I have a nice budget. We need to chat. I really mean it. Seriously, I mean it. And things, go on from there. She's, Ezel's totally up for talking. The work you do is very interesting. Where it goes from here, I have no idea. The wheels have come off. As I said, a lot of crazy stuff going on in Oklahoma. I'm sure we'll be continuing to cover it. As I mentioned yesterday, it seems now, after the medical marijuana bill passed on June 26th, now every day there's more stories about Oklahoma. Now things are just getting crazy. I mean, now the rules are going to be looked at. Maybe they'll be rescinded. Maybe it's going to go to the legislature. Maybe they'll hammer out rules and regulations. It's a long way. If you're hoping for medical marijuana anytime soon in Oklahoma, I wouldn't hold my breath. I think it's a long way off, and there's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of legal wranglings to get through. We'll continue to cover it all here on Cannabis News. Thank you to Natureside, nature-side.com for being a proud sponsor of the show. They are awesome. Side is spelled CIDE. Check out their organic, all-natural pesticides. Make sure you check us out on marijuanatimes.org. Follow us on all our social media. Subscribe on YouTube. Marijuana Times. Search it on YouTube. Click that little notification bell icon so you know when a new episode of Cannabis News has been posted. Thanks, everybody, for checking us out, and we'll see you next time on Cannabis News.